Good, it's your boy CZARR, all rights reserved, coming to you with another one. One of the situations I wanted to expand upon as we started getting to is that it was just taken for granted that possibly these young men's lives were involved in this. The truth be told, what you learn about looking at cases, look at the most unlikely person in the situation. And usually it is that person that is evident to who has accomplished it and done something. Now, one of the main things I wanted to talk about was the different interactions around the scene tightly. And this was described to the father and other people that had requested were saying a mashup up till now. So with that said, up till now, one of the main things came when commenter Theo Kalidoze had said his lips looked blue. So was he poisoned? And he actually never made it out the car or something happened. That was a main thing. Then there came another interaction of understanding where they were like, look at how everyone's moving, as I'm saying to the father. Now, these suspects not only are pleading not guilty, but in their situation specifically, there was a large sum presented on behalf of the state for them to fight back. Because there has to be certain evidence found. That means without a shadow of a doubt, there's some denial that they were actually involved the way it's being described. On top of that, then they begin investigations into other parties that were around the situation. And this is the part that the people who would be linked to, let's say, Team Mastermind would want nothing to do with. They wouldn't want nothing like this to happen. These guys were fall guys from the beginning, I stated. Now, around the situation, now you have his father come out, which, thank you, sir, for speaking up, because it's something very hard to speak about. It's not easy to speak about something like this when it's your son, when it's somebody you love, and they're in this situation, they're deceased, and they're trying to figure out who did it, especially when people are ducking and dodging. But, sir, I really do ask that you look into the fight that occurred that night before. That's the key metric. Now, allegedly, suspects are saying there was other conversation to make it premeditated. This is why the suspects are being targeted so hard, sir. They are claiming the suspects themselves have information of contact to them by someone else on the inside to set that up. That is what they're talking about. That's their talking point. That's their fighting point. Sir, let me ask you, how many times have you heard of someone coming into court already lawyered up? When Trayvon was arrested, he lawyered up immediately. Where did he get the money to do that? If we're presuming $50,000 were haunted by these men, you're telling me they had enough to pay for one of the top lawyers in the state? Sir, there is a lot more to this than you understand. And that is why I say not to say that about them. And on part of the mashup, as you went through the videos, let me just do brief talking points. So when I started the series, I put the emphasis on looking into X himself, seeing what type of person he was and who was hanging around him. As you know, I started finding out more information, and I had an interview with one of the women that had actually lived in the house with them. And this was the house he went to because why? Because his mother kicked him out. Sir, that is a very vital point to look at. So to know what type vibes he was on, look at what was happening to him. He was kicked out. He was not allowed. There was a new man that came into the picture. Their interaction, you don't really hear much about it. And he usually showed himself on social media with all interaction, but you didn't see too much about it at all. You don't find that strange? He wasn't really reacting? No, sir. Also, he created charities to give back to kids and to give back to school. So these charities were created. But the crazy thing is, upon his demise, I don't know when, it says it on the sheet. You can read it when you find it. It talks about charities with certain people that now have places in the charity and access the money. So the question now is, if their records of payments aren't publicly shown, how do you know where the money's at? How do you know how the money's being moved? You don't. So that's another thing. So that's why we said it was fishy that these young men had a lawyer paid off, had a lot of stuff around it that a normal person would never have, and then they ended up being in this situation. Now they're looking to arrest them and do different things to them. These are all contributing factors to why we ask what, why, how, what is really happening. Main things that we asked. That's how we began it. Not only that, if you go back and watch it, I went into detail on some shows. Now, here's the vital thing. Check out how we talk about it. It's subjective. We're not accusing people unless there's something directly linked to them. Like, for instance, if there's a receipt of one of his friends beating a woman and then they accuse him of beating a woman, it's very eerie, especially when he's not around like that. You know what I mean? He's not really there to do it. So, and then the situation involving the young girl that he was around. And this young girl, forgive me of not saying her name. Guys, drop her name in the comments below. Jocelyn Flores. She ended up leaving a party he was at. And next she ended up choked out in the hotel. These are things that were occurring around, and they happen to be linked to him. And friends of his are ones that was last with them. You see, there's a lot to it that isn't talked about. Like, you know, it's just weird because it's not really the subject. It's not even looked at as if a situation. You got to look at these things. These things all build to a very curious motive and curious happenings behind the scenes. And that is part of what we've been here doing for a long time. I've been talking about it in detail. I've been pushing it left and right. And that's the whole ideology behind it. I don't want you to say these men need to be sentenced to whatever type of punishment, thinking that they had something to do with it. Because we don't really know. We don't know. We don't have enough detail. His toxicology report. What was last in his blood? Come on. Like, that wasn't done. And think of how fast he went into the grave. We really can't sit back and say, oh, it happened this way because he looked like this and that. It's so many conundrums and contradictions, and a lot of it revolves around the friends. Now, here's my thing I'll say. The least likely people you are to hear talk about it, they'll sometimes tell you the truest story about the situation that's going on with your son and what happened. We did interviews over here. You can go back through and check them all. We talked about Jenesis in different ways and things that was happening around it. We talked about people that came up, how they came up, why they did what they did to come up. We talked about it in detail, even to the point and the factor of me interacting with other people that they were defending a certain topic as saying he's still alive as this person. He's doing this now. Check it out. Putting disinformation, we addressed those people. This has been all ongoing features to complement, to build to understanding. This is what we're at right now. You know what I mean? We are not saying that you don't have a right to feel that way. But I can tell you the evidence doesn't show these three men alone were involved. They had a higher, closer understanding on how to do it. And it was so close as to the point that they were able to know what time, where, what he was doing. Like, they got the drop from somebody. That's the most important thing to understand. They got the drop on what to do from people. They didn't just go and do this. They were not in a situation to have that knowledge. The things they did with the car was prepping before, from them getting a rental, borrowing the rental, the time they left their place, got in the car, different things. It's not cut and dry. There's a higher influence to these men doing this. It was not simply they went for your son because of this reason and that reason. It's looking into the factors of why would they? What did they have to gain? Okay, they had the money to gain. They had the influence to gain out where they were. Let's say we take it from that angle. Now, what still governs the reasoning behind his position dealing with him in the car when he was inside? Who was he with? Why doesn't the person want to come out and admit they were with him? You want to know what? And that was the first mistake on why I looked deeper. A person that was with him did not want to admit it. Why? That sounds like guilt to me. If I'm with you and I'm on video and they're not doing to take the time to figure out and they're saying it's the uncle, I think you need to look into who it is. Because as we have the pictures afterwards, the two men talking, it did not look synonymous to the names that they gave matching with the pictures. There was no conversation that led up to a true specific person. And they're just throwing a title out there with his uncle. They're not dropping the name. And when they do put the name, they're putting the name of people who are around, that was still around his family, not him though. All the names aren't around him. Like when they speak of the aunt or uncle or people, there was odd interactions. Sir, please, this is part of what I'm telling you. I'll do another breakdown, very detailed, going through the titles of the videos for you to check out if I have to. But I'm telling you, these are the videos that we built up to gain some type of understanding of what is going on. All rights reserved.